Welcome to the world of Mediation Without Borders. Today, we are taking you to Minnesota with our special guest, Mikki McGill.
Recording in progress. Okay. So do you hear me clearly? My audio is razors and many. Okay. So Mikki, I'm really glad that you find a time to meet me and discuss for my podcast, Mediation Without Borders, to discuss what is the situation about the mediation in your area, in your country and some another topics, of course, about the mediation and AI and online world.
Yeah,
But first of all, tell me what brings you to the mediation? What is your background? What brings you to mediation in general?
absolutely. Yeah. So, gosh, I when I was in grad school doing my
Uh-huh.
master's, I um ended up getting a graduate certificate in conflict resolution. And
Okay.
it was by far, hands down, the greatest piece of education that I ever received, and so I was so excited about it, Michael, and I didn't know what to do with it at that time. I mean, I used it. I was working for the federal government at that time and had a full career there, and
Uh-huh.
I was also doing foreign exchange, um and so in foreign exchange, I used it with American host families and
Mm-hmm.
students who came to the United States. And I helped, hundreds of students that way. And we also host in our home. But I didn't really know how to take that next step. And so, gosh, it was 6 years ago. I decided, well, it was a little more than that. I left the government and went into foreign exchange full time and then transitioned from there. And I was transitioning and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? It was COVID and everything else, right?
Okay.
And I thought, if money wasn't an issue, and it's not that it isn't, but if money wasn't an issue, what would I do? And at that time, I was volunteering to do mediation down at what we call small claims court civil mediation cases. And I
Uh-huh.
loved it. Every time I came home, I like was crazy for my husband, was crazy for my family, the dog, the cat, everybody. I was just so happy that I thought,
Okay. Nice.
this is something I love. So when I got into that, I thought I'm going to explore that. And I understood that family was one of those areas that people, um, uh, you know, can possibly make a living at doing, not so much civil or small
Uh-huh.
claims.
Okay.
So, I explored that to see if that was a good fit, and it really felt like it was, and I got really excited, and so it just kinda took off from there, and that was 6 years ago. So I'm
Six
really
years.
happy to still be in this space and doing what I do and love, and, there's always more to learn. I meet the most courageous people that I've ever
Mm-hmm.
met. They're willing to face, um, where they are in the present and also to face their future. So that's kind of how I got into this space, Michael.
Okay, okay. Lovely. Really love the part that you love government. But
People do that supposedly, but
yeah, but of course, the happiness when you came from to back home from the small civil court, also your eyes quite sparkle. Um my little backup story is quite similar. I also love work for government. Actually, I studied public relations and diplomacy, and then theology and social worker. I have a state exam from as a social worker, and then I work for a government to provide this social exclusion project to fight the social exclusion. And well, after 7 years working for a government, and I like my job, but well, I find out that I'm not really good in administrative field
Mhm.
just to check the invoices, etc. And I also do through my career, I find out how really important to find the right connection between lots of stakeholders, especially in the social worker field, like the state government, regional government, cities, non-government organization. Each of them has own interest and needs, and so I hit the mediation in my university, and let's say after 7 years, I find it out one more time, and since then it's also quite 6 years since I finished my job with government. Um Full time doing and focusing about the mediation. The purpose of this podcast is just to explore, because I'm from Czech Republic, where the mediation is still quite in the beginning, and not just in Czech Republic. I think in Europe, not in every country, but as I already spoke with German, Romanian, mediators in Belgium. But there's quite a nice tradition in Belgium about the community mediation, and I'm quite curious and try to explore and spread how it works with mediation from all around the world. So your field, your country is US, but I already visit two US mediators. But you are from Wisconsin, isn't it?
No, Minnesota right next.
Minnesota
Very
is
close. Midwest.
very close.
You've got that right. Have you been to the US, Michael?
I've been to Canada. I,
Oh,
li-
okay.
I live in Montreal. I live in Vancouver. I've been so close, but well, I was
It's easy.
busy, and well, no, don't have a time. It's a shame on me. But we'll come definitely
I
one
hope
day.
so. And if it's to Minnesota, I hope you'll look us up here because there are a few of us here.
Yeah, as a big lover of the '70s show, I see the Wisconsin, so.
Sure.
But Minnesota isn't a full house from Minnesota. Oh,
Minnesota,
the
I
bank.
love Minnesota, and it's a great place. But I tell you, I was in the Czech Republic in March for
Okay,
my
okay.
first time ever, and I just loved it there, and it was for, dialogue a transformative dialogue training, and it was, phenomenal, and I met so many, other mediators, in the Czech Republic, in, um, Austria, from Germany, from, just all over Europe. It was just a phenomenal, and I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing there, actually. So,
Good to hear.
it's a
Nice to hear.
privilege. Yeah, well, I tell you, it's a privilege. It was really a privilege to know you guys, to get to know you now, but also to have met other people and what they're doing in that mediation space. And one of my passions is supporting families. So how you know how you guys are supporting families and is just incredible. And um, I'm grateful to hear about it and to know that it's out there.
Uh, nice, nice. Thanks for appreciation. Your main field, your main region is Minnesota, right? But you are like doing mediation around the world, and or especially just in the US, or?
Great question, great question. So I specialize in Minnesota and for divorce and for co-parenting. I could probably do co-parenting outside of Minnesota, but I really focus on Minnesota for divorce mediation and co-parenting mediation. And the reasons for that is because in each of the states in the United States, there's just different. It works different legally how they do and interpret, and how they also then do
So, and
finance and
how it
marriage.
works in Minnesota, especially the
Yeah.
mediation. How is integrated in your legal local system, as you are federation? So each country has like a state, federal.
Yeah, right. Right. So I most of what I do is divorce mediation and co-parenting, and I
Mhm.
specialize in divorce finance as a certified divorce financial analyst, CDFA, they're called in the United States, and they also have them in Canada, probably in Montreal and all over there. But the other thing that I do also is I do support groups, and so I have Right now, I have 5 support groups that I do for grief,
Mm-hmm.
divorce, um, separation, and coping and resilience skills building. So, and life after divorce. So, those have been some of the areas there. As far as Minnesota and family law, divorce, co-parenting goes, we are a state that um, doesn't necessarily just split things exactly down the middle. And we also, like many states, we do have a calculator for child support. We don't for spousal support. Not many of our families do for that. Um, but then there's also, how does Minnesota look at um, uh, parenting time? How does Minnesota look at income? How do we go through a lot of the finances,
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
a sheet? And so I kind of talk about it as there's 3 buckets. There's a bucket for property, people's
Mm-hmm.
assets and their debts. And I love talking with people about that. And then there's also, how are you going to take care of your kids, which is really important. It's a lot of the reason that people reach
Sure.
out to because they want to keep more of their financial resources. They want to keep their kids and keep that relationship with their kids and not become estranged or it be stressed so much where kids have to feel like they have to pick and then it kind of falls off. One parent kind of gets blamed. And then that third bucket is support. So whether people are going to how they're going to financially support their kids, but also then if there is going to be any spousal support. And spousal support is different in each state, how it's kind of looked at and managed. And so each of those areas actually are a little bit different from state to state. So
And how is
we
it? How is it in Minnesota? So, like for example, in Czech Republic, we have like a general law about the mediation. We have institute as a signed mediator who passed the exams with Ministry of Justice. But you can also be certified mediator and do mediation as your own, as a self-made man. We have some training, of course, schools, but there's not such a much like certified schools. How is it situation about Minnesota?
yeah.
How you became a mediator?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm a little bit ashamed when I talk about what's required here in the United States for to be a mediator. So really to be a family mediator, all that's required is a 40-hour class, which is not much, frankly. And it doesn't really prepare people. And most education, it's minimal qualifications, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then you got to go out and practice,
Okay.
and all of this. Um, I um I I also believe and I've done well over gosh, I've probably done 400 hours in these last 6 years of training, and I every year, I spend a lot of hours in training because I just think it's so important to keep up as well as to improve my skill. So, the minimums are a 40-hour training for family mediators, and that's, pretty standard, and then the other one, that a lot of people do, not everybody, but, if the courts are referring people, they want them to be on what we call, the Rule 114 roster. So, to be on that Rule 114 roster, you have to have a certain number of continuing education credits every 2 years, I believe it is, and then you have to be in good standing, and then you have to pay the fee, and it's just as simple as that, unfortunately. It doesn't address any of the financial at all, that I
Okay.
think is so important, particularly in divorce, because people, even when they're well-intentioned, they make mistakes that can be very costly, and when those mistakes are costly, it affects their relationship and how
Yes, of
they're able to
course.
part and how they're able to parent afterward. So it's really important to get it done and get it done right when they do it. And so I work with families to help them to get educated. Frequently, there's been one party in marriage or relationships, we all kind of silo different jobs. One
Mhm,
person may
mhm.
do all the medical,
Mm.
and school appointments. Another person may, take care of the house or the yard. Another person may do the finances or the investments. And so there's an education piece to bring everybody on the same page and get educated, and then to determine what kinds of information do you need to make your best decisions, because mediation, as you know,
Mhm.
is supporting people to make the best decisions for themselves and for them to determine what those best decisions are.
Yes, yes, yes. I know. And when I explaining mediation to my friends and to general public, I usually say, well, how to explain the mediator roles if I'm doing nothing is quite hard, and the biggest issue is that the people are not really get used to take responsibility of their own actions. So I don't know how situation is in US. I think it's a little bit better than in Czech Republic. This is my opinion, and
Oh, maybe I'm lucky. I do feel like the people that I work with are very courageous and they're willing to kind of face things. Is it hard? Yeah. I mean, it's really hard. I've had some couples who have, I've worked with and they cry for sessions, kind of thing. And I've had others that are just ready, they've had maybe enough of a break and they've kind of are ready to move on, kind of that
okay.
emotional piece can be a piece of it, I think. I don't know if that's part of what maybe you're referring to too, that people emotionally sometimes aren't
Yeah.
ready to face. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Not really. People are emotions are fine. People are not afraid to, well, not well, are exploring their emotions, but they find out the right decision without and put emotions aside and find them by themselves. They usually get used to the typically postpone it to the lawyer or the judge or anyone else to the state authorities in general is quite hard still. I don't know why. Um, so that's the biggest issue in my cases, that the people still think about who makes decisions instead of them. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
Second thing, that they sometimes not feel the reality of their decisions. They are try to be maximized and not to see also the another part, what they want, or another party, the other side. Uh,
I'm curious,
well,
that second one, Michael. Tell me a little bit more about that with them not feeling the reality of the choices that they're making, because that sounds really interesting.
uh, well, not keep it simple, not realistic. They want the maximum, and not even from the another party, but also from someone else who is involved, or for themselves. So to keep the deal smart is sometimes quite hard to be specific, measurable, make a time, a schedule. People really often forgot about that. That the day has just 48 hours. We have just 7 days.
Oh no, one day has 48 hours. I can see the problem right there. Talk about unreasonable expectation.
So,
Sorry, you hit my math funny bone.
uh, okay. Well, and let's focus more about your region. And well, my issue also is that I really have to explain what is mediation about. When I explain it to the people, they said, "Yeah, it's great. You probably have to be busy a lot." And then I said, "Yeah." people tell me that, but when I get to the point you have to pay for a man who do nothing, just listening, they feel, well, I'm going to think about it,
Yeah.
and uh, um, they call, of course, sometimes, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Even I think the mediation will help them. But what about you? What is your situation when you say hi in a party in some beautiful soirée? You said, I'm a mediator. I am focusing about divorce and co-parenting. They said, yeah, it's a cool job. Well, can you tell me more about it? Or you have to explain what is mediation about in general?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I jump ahead to say what the problem is, Michael, in that. Yeah, I do take some time to explain what mediation is. Primarily, the families that are reaching out to me, their primary desire is to stay out of the courts. That they do not want, if they can stay away from attorneys in the courts, that's really what they want to do. And so many of us here in the United States, and it's attorneys too, feel that the courts are really set up for criminals. They're there to punish and sentence criminals. And so when you bring the family into the court, um,
Okay.
it isn't it isn't really it ends up being where um, you know a parent gets criminalized
Sorry.
against the other, which is the bad parent, and it's kind of, this mudslinging kind of thing. And so the families that reach out to me, they wanna stay out of the courts. They wanna have as amicable, of a divorce as possible. They wanna keep their kids. They wanna be able to, recover sooner and stay in their kids' lives, and those are their primary concerns when they reach out to me. Um, so, do I explain what I do as a mediator? Yes, but I think they understand that a mediator can help them to stay out of court. And so they are trying to stay away from so often they're trying to stay away from um, attorneys that litigate, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not an attorney, um,
Yes.
but I tell them even if I were an attorney, I can give you legal information. I can't give you a legal opinion of what you should or shouldn't do. That's
Yeah,
that's
sure, sure.
that's an attorney. So I you know so they have a preconceived idea when they reach out to me that I can help them stay out of court and help them to navigate this so that things don't just blow up and to actually help them to be more amicable going through this. And they both have they generally the couples that reach out to me, they have a sense, they have some hope. I don't know how to measure it on a scale
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
But they have some hope that they can do this amicably, that this can be done. And so, I think different than what your first problem was that you shared about, deferring to other people making decisions for them. These are families that I work with that really want to make their own decisions
Mhm.
and want to be able
Nice,
to
nice.
continue doing that. So it's a privilege, like I said, to do this work. As far as what my biggest challenge is
Okay.
as a mediator, my biggest challenge is really on the front end. Um, it really is, um, them understanding the value that I bring to the table to make that next step, right? Like you were mentioning kind of, I think, right? It's like,
Okay.
"Oh, it sounds nice, you're gonna listen, you're gonna support and all of this, maybe we can do that ourselves. Maybe we don't need you," right? And so, that's really, frankly, my biggest challenge is people who come forth, they feel like they're getting along okay. They don't wanna go sideways. They don't want things to get blown up down the road. They're not sure where I probably am most helpful is they're not sure about the process and how to navigate the process, so that's
Mhm.
why they reach out to a professional like myself. Um, because most of the families that I work with, either neither of them have been divorced or one of them has been divorced. It's not unusual that one or one of them has come from a divorced family, sometimes both, where they're parents. And if that's happened where they've come from a divorced family, um, their parents split up, they know what they don't wanna do. They know how they don't want their child to feel. They know that they wanna be more amicable, and they don't wanna have all the drama and court and, you know, they wanna be able to do, holidays, they wanna be able to do graduation, weddings. They just
Yeah, sure,
with the
sure,
kid.
sure.
Yeah, in a good way.
Okay.
So,
And what about when you were talking, like for 30 seconds, what is your biggest challenges? In
yeah.
my head was I was thinking that you're gonna say lawyers. Every session. No. No, how is relationship? How is because every time I do this interview, we gonna talk about the lawyers. My good colleague, my partner in my small entertainment, he's a lawyer. He's
Mhm.
but mostly he's doing mediation. He's focusing about mediation, and I found lots of lawyers that they turn from lawyer link litigation to do mediation. They're not being satisfied what they are doing. Uh, so what about the lawyers in Minnesota and the courts in Minnesota? What's the relationship with mediation?
Yeah, great question, Michael. So, gosh, and that's such a big envelope to unpack there. So many attorneys look at mediation and they get burnout in family law because my understanding is from talking to many of them, they get burnout in family law
Hmm.
and they really sometimes they skip to a different kind of law. They skip to a state or they skip to, you know, criminal or another kind of, they specialize in a different
Hmm.
area
Hmm.
to kind of take a break, so to speak. But many, when they've seen mediation or they've been exposed to mediation, and many have in law school. In fact, I've had many shadow me in my practice over in the past years, as part of their training and education in law school and otherwise. Um, many of them think, "Oh, this is a walk in the park. I can do this, and I can not have to deal with, the calls at whatever time, and the drama of all of
Yeah.
these different things, and the burnout and all of this." So, it seems very very attractive to many attorneys to go into mediation. Um, Frankly, many people who are many people like dentists and like foresters and attorneys also fit this. Many different areas of people who get, um, their education in a particular area, whether they sit for the bar exam and pass it in the United States or not. Even accountants, many people don't actually practice in that field. And so sometimes it's an area that enhances their career, but they don't practice in that area. But
Hmm.
many people who are drawn into the attorney field, um, are have an adversarial gift. I'll put it that way, right? They can argue, you know, they can take a side, they can be an advocate, frankly. They can be an advocate. And frankly, I am not a good advocate. I am really a neutral. That really is my heart and where I fit in the world. And so um I can appreciate and I think um there are mediators who try to do both in different spaces and places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and good for them if they can do that. That's not my fit. And so for many attorneys that try to go mediator, it often isn't a good fit. Just because there is this other thing operating for them that's quite natural and part of the reason they got drawn to that field. There are some out there, I'm sure, who are very good at making that, and who wanted maybe to support people more rather
Hmm.
than to be adversarial. Um,
Nice
I
to
would
hear.
say,
Nice to hear.
yeah, yeah. I know that I'm sure that that's true. I think so often. what I have been for many of the first years, particularly I was in practice, I was worried about the kinds of attorneys that the families I work with would consult with, or maybe
Hmm.
use, and where that might go. And I've actually found a way that I'm feeling really comfortable with. I have one attorney's office that I'm working with here now that I'm very excited about. We're doing some partnerships to have the documentation prepared for, because in Minnesota, I am actually very prohibited from providing any kind of documentation that's in a filing form for the court. And so my hands have been strapped, and I've been a bit hogtied during
Okay.
this time, and I've had to pass on. Tell my clients, you need to have either you need to self file, and here's how you can do it, or you can use a paralegal scrivener, or you need to have an attorney prepare the documents. I can prepare your mediated agreement. I have now have a partnership where those documents are being prepared for the families that I work with, and I feel very comfortable with the attorney relationship there, or having this attorney support them in that. And we have something, Minnesota has actually been one of the leading states in the United States in a number of ways. We've had, we are a leader in mediation. Our courts,
Great, great,
yeah,
great.
our courts will refer people to mediation at different points
Oh,
in the process.
wonderful.
Not necessarily all of it or whatever. I think there's still things that could definitely be improved, but we are the head runners in what we call SENEs and FENEs. That's social early neutral evaluations and financial early neutral evaluations, which is
Hmm.
people who are kind of going down the more adversarial and court traditional route. They can have those, and it can help kind of to help educate and kind of turn some things around. So there's a number of, and we also have collaborative law here in Minnesota. And so there are many, I feel like Minnesota's a really good state to get divorced in for a number of reasons. One is there's no wait period. Some states, people have to file, and they would have to be separated for a year. In Minnesota, that's not the case. Uh,
Okay, okay.
so there's just different as far as attorneys go, I just feel like so often it um it really is about how the person really is made up as to whether or not they really can support people in the ways that they need to be supported through a process like this, right? Where we're not like being an advocate.
Okay.
I tell people, I'm not going to be your advocate, and I'm not going to be your advocate. What I'm specially trained to do is to help the both of you to show up the way you want to show up, have the
Yeah.
conversations you need to have pursuant to divorce, and I'm an advocate of your conversation. And so I think it's important to be an advocate in that space. And it can be hard to take off the hat if you're an advocate over here or an advocate over here. Did that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, yes, and it's really, I'm really impressed, especially how courts support mediation. And also some, as you mentioned, it's kind of like a prevention, like institute about the pre-financial or is it something
Well,
different?
not exactly prevention, but you can get families can get an evaluation. I mean, there is a fee for it and everything and all. It's not pro bono through the state or anything like. In fact, there's nothing pro bono through the state,
Okay.
or the federal as far as divorce and co-parenting goes in general. But um, there are there are supports along the way, and frankly, a lot of the reason that there is more of a referral, not exactly referral, but there's more of an encouragement to mediate. Many divorce decrees in Minnesota, once you're divorced, it'll say that you have to go to mediation before you come back to court. So that's one way that Minnesota helps to encourage people to work out their own problems. But there's
Yeah.
also for two other reasons. One is studies have shown that when people make their own decisions, they abide by them better. There's higher, right, compliance, and I know you know that being a mediator.
Definitely, I have my experience, but still kind of like encourage this feeling that the people make decisions by themselves. It's the best idea ever. It's sometimes the hardest job of
It
the
can be. It's not
mediation.
an easy job.
It's not an easy job.
Yeah.
Uh, so you answer my question perfectly, and one
Well,
more.
second reason, there's a second reason, if I
Yeah,
may.
sure.
Second reason that the courts, encourage mediation at different points, like post-divorce as being one of those, um, is because the courts are overloaded. They just don't have the capacity to deal and make a decision on every single piece of people's lives and to micromanage their lives. And so, um, those are really 2 reasons that mediation, because it is effective, so much
Yes.
more effective than being court ordered to do something, and also then because the court's resources are really, taxed and tapped out so that,
Yes, yes,
people
yes,
need
yes.
to step up.
You are not alone by my interviews.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are not alone. Um, well, couple more questions. One is, what is the main style of mediation in Minnesota?
Oh, that's a really good question, and another big envelope, Michael.
Mhm.
So there's
Okay,
so
so
many.
just like, what is your main style? You are
Yeah, that's
transformative.
maybe a better way. So there are so many styles. There's facilitative, there's, interest-based, there's child-centered, there's client-centered, there's transformative. There's so many different styles, right, of
Yeah,
mediation.
and I like to say, forgot about the style. Use what is best for clients,
Yeah,
but well, still, it's quite unkept question. What is the main style? What's the clients or what's the general public gets when they go for a mediation
right, right. So
from
so
you?
as far as my approach is, I would say it's a combination of transformative and facilitative. And I've been trained in all of the styles that I just mentioned to you. Um, and I've done about 230 mediations, and those are generally 2 hours each. So it's considered to be pretty good amount. Um, Actually, a good amount as a mediator. It's a professional amount. But I find, and part of the reason that, and I'm one of about 150 certified transformative mediators in the world. So that's the reason I was in the Czech Republic was because
Hmm.
from there. And so that is a very specific style that supports people, um, and has a certain philosophy about where people are coming from in conflict and what kind of support that they need in conflict. I very much adhere to that. I feel that I use the facilitative partly, um, because of the financial and because of an education piece that kind of needs to be a part, for people because it takes so long to just they just there's a education piece and a support piece that I feel like is there. And so I do the facilitative as well. So when I work with families, I help them with those 3 buckets that we talked about. I
Yeah,
help them with
yeah.
the property, with how they're gonna take care of the kids, what kind of financial support is gonna be provided, if any. And then from there, I help them to come up with a parenting plan, a holiday schedule, um, and, um, and I help them to, um have decisions about all the things that they need to make decisions about pursuant to their divorce. That's things that they can see now, but it's also kind of looking into the future, particularly in the parenting area. And, how do you want to, be there for your kids? And, what if you repartner down the road? How are we going to, how are you going to deal with that and all of that? So,
Sure, 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 sure. Really important questions. Not just for divorced couples.
oh, yeah.
um, well, I have to ask it. What about the mediation and AI? Or
Mediation and AI. Mediation.
in your opinion, or in Minnesota. What is the situation? What do you think about it?
Okay. Well, maybe I should have you define what you mean by mediation and AI. Why don't we start?
Okay, specify the question. What do you think is the future of AI in like a alternative dispute resolution field? Will
Yeah.
be support? I put it as a open question.
Yeah.
Like, what will you think will be the role of AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, and all these language system for now? And they are developing so fast that what we think it will be in not just years, but maybe couple months.
Yeah.
So what will be the role? What do you think?
It's a great question, and I love AI. I am premium Chat GPT myself, so I love it, and it's amazing all that it can do. I have people in some of my support groups that use it as their therapist. So in at least one case that I'm very familiar with, I don't know if she's getting therapy outside or if it has been already replaced her therapist. So there's one example right there, and she's very pleased with the results. She asks it questions and feels like she gets support and therapeutic answers and all of that. Um, I n- the vast majority of the work that I do here in Minnesota and abroad with support groups is Zoom, and so I am in the virtual space,
Mhm.
and I love that, and I've gotten great feedback from people in the virtual space. So I think, so much, we know COVID, changed things,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
now
yeah, definitely.
we get medical, one-on-ones. We don't have to travel, and I think I get a lot of great feedback from the families I work with that, especially those that have kids. I don't have to, you know they're already running around for our kids' activities and all of that and losing transportation time and all of this, and they can be in their own home. They can have their glass of water. They can be in their fuzzy slippers. They can do some self-care by showing up there. So I know that the virtual space, I just get phenomenal feedback on it, and I believe it supports my families better than if they were to show up in person because that's what they've told me. As far as being replaced by I don't
Uh-huh.
know. Like I said, there's the therapist piece that I know of from one person. I also know of in my support groups, I do some of the support groups that I do, part of them are contract, part of them are private that I do. And in the contract one, they are actually developing an AI model to be a professional support group facilitator. So I
Mhm.
may be getting replaced there before I am replaced as a mediator, I suspect. But I think there's so much to know, and as great as ChatGPT Premium and all of the rest are, and they are, and they're gaining. I
Mhm.
think there really just is. There's this human quality, and it's one of the things I see so often in my mediations as well as in my support groups of really connecting. We are so isolated and disconnected, and particularly when we're going through separation and divorce, we are
Mhm.
all the
Mhm.
more, we've been discarded. One of us has felt like very discarded, at least. We're grieving. We are just so lonely. And so I really think that this piece of connection, while AI can help with part of it, like the person I mentioned that is using
Yeah,
it for
yeah,
therapy.
sure.
I think I think there's something that's still going to be special about that human connection. And so I have hope that I'm not closing my doors or
No, definitely.
anytime soon, Michael. But I mean, it's crazy what's out there, and it's amazing and wonderful.
I'm on your side. I am on the same page. I'm also like a AI fan. I use ChatGPT every day. I also try to train it as a trainer for new mediators, because to get people to train, now I'm focusing, not I'm trying to build up like a AI avatar with actual face, because
Wow.
ChatGPT can't do that. It just,
Yeah.
floating bubble. It's fine. I tried by myself, but still, it's the just floating bubble, and the avatar a little bit more play the role, and can do the job as a trainer for mediators, for the new mediators. Or not. I'm thinking not even for mediators, for every manager that try to train how to deal with employers, colleagues, business partners, etc.
Yeah,
Uh,
a way to clone yourself as much as possible, right? To spread further because
uh,
you only have so much, we can only do so much.
yeah, of
48 of
course.
one 48-hour day, we can only do so much, Michael.
Oh. It's gonna hunt me a couple more days, couple more hours. Um 24 hours. 48. Well, yeah, it's kind of replace us a little bit, by my opinion. But all this AI is just us. We are putting in AI ourselves, and if someone use it, they still need, the trainer, the input. They doesn't uh output some nothing that didn't learn from us. So we maybe make it better, but hope the better the society in general, because we have like trained all together. And in my case, as like a really minority, um just 10 million inhabitants, we have still quite a big culture differences and
Mm,
habits. When I using ChatGPT, and I still have to give him a notice, my audience is from Czech Republic. It's
mhm.
not America, not the Anglo-Saxon
Yeah.
speaking. You are quite different. So in my case, I'm going to be replaced a little bit later than you, probably, because your much more. Your AI has much more experience
Robot.
than mine.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to declare that I am also a learning model. And you are also a learning model. And so even as we are learning and we can feed that into ChatGPT and we are learning ChatGPT and other things,
Yes.
we are also learning models. And I think that that is part of what makes us valuable. If we weren't, then yeah, absolutely, we'd be obsolete because AI is going to keep learning and learning and learning. But we're also going to be learning and using ChatGPT. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
So am I.
Thank
So
you so much for today, Michael.
uh,
Wow.
that's all from my side. Probably after a couple minutes, I close our meeting. It pops a couple more questions in my head, but we are doing this
Of course.
almost for 1 hour. And I think it's enough for now, definitely. Do you have any question for me?
I don't, but I think too, I would love to have another connection again, Michael, and whether that's another, continuation here or otherwise, to stay in touch and
Okay.
also somewhat, track, right?
Yes.
What's going on and learn more about your work and what you're doing there.
Yeah, yeah. It pops in one more question, but you already talking about it. The support groups. It's in Circles, the
Mhm.
website.
And private. Those are the contract groups I do, are the circles. And then, I also do private support groups.
Let's keep it for another
Let's
meeting.
do that. I think that would be a great whole conversation in and of itself, Michael. So if you wanna if you still have the link, or I can resend it to you, we could have another conversation when you're ready about that, because I do agree, it's another whole conversation.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, Mikki, thanks a lot one more time for to chat with me to discuss the mediation in our regions.
And see you next time. Thank you for joining us on Mediation Without Borders. If you are more curious about mediation around the world, don't forget to follow and share. See you next time.